I never thought I'd go to Goa. Goa isn't really a place for someone like me, you know. It is obviously the absolute destination for people who love partying and beaches. But I'm not a great fan of either. In fact, the reason I ended up in Goa was because Ratnadeep took too much time to make up his mind about going to Nagaland. By the time he actually said he wanted to come along, we had already made all the bookings for just the three of us. That is, Shujoy, Monzij and I. And so it was too late. But then Ratnadeep was a bit glum, so I told him he could decide where to go next and I'd tag along. So he chose Goa and I realized I'd be in Bombay at the time, so it wouldn't be so far away either. And I thought, how bad could it be? However, it wasn't also probably the most ideal time for me to be traveling, as back in Bombay we were in the process of writing the screenplay for our final semester film. So I did end up spending quite a lot of time while on the train and also in Goa, writing. Our train was running late by a few hours, and so it was already late evening by the time we reached Madgaon. Paul, our Airbnb host, was kind enough to pick us up from the railway station, and then he dropped us off at his villa called Louisiana in Varca. I mean, it was indeed a nice experience staying in an authentic Goa home, but then the villa was also so goddamn huge that it was actually intimidating to try and keep it clean. More so because of the sand that you bring along with yourself when you come back from the beach. Anyway, the next morning I had to go pick up Snehasmita from the bus stand. But South Goa doesn't really have a whole lot of public transport and we hadn't rented our scooters yet. So I had no other option but to hitchhike all the way there. Fortunately, people in Goa are really chill and getting a lift wasn't at all difficult. In fact, the person was so nice that he went some extra distance for me even though I hadn't asked him to. Later in the day, we rented scooters and then we went out for some brunch. Once we had some food in our bellies, we went to the Varca beach, which was close by. But turns out going to the beach in the middle of the day isn't a great idea. However, the scorching sun or the heat weren't really an issue for my beach-loving companions, who did have a pretty good time there. Don't get me wrong, I really liked Varca beach, with its fine ochre sand and the clean blue sea. Plus, there were hardly any people at the beach at all times of the day. But in my opinion, going to the beach very early in the morning at sunrise or later in the afternoon when the sun is slowly setting is a far better experience. Later, we also went to Kolwa Beach, which was a terrible idea because it was probably the only beach in all of South Goa that was literally swarming with people. We spent the next day almost entirely working. Finally, later in the evening, we went to Majorda Beach. While the three of them went into the water, I stayed back on the shore, keeping watch over the belongings. If you are wondering why I didn't join them, the answer is because I didn't want to. However, this would be the last time during the whole trip that I'd get to do that. On every occasion after this, they'd pay no heed to my refusal and would drag me into the water with them. I do, however, appreciate the gesture. They didn't want to leave me behind and they wanted me to have fun with them. I didn't hate it either, but I must add that sitting on the shore and watching the sunset or listening to the sound of the waves is just as much fun for me, even though it might not seem so. Next morning we were supposed to go to Palolem, and so first we had some local breakfast at this small but really nice cafe nearby. On our way to Palolem, I thought we'd also make a stop at this beautiful temple that I had gotten to know about in a travel vlog on YouTube. The temple is called Mallikarjuna Temple, but little did we know that there's not one, but two Mallikarjuna temples on the way. And so we landed up at the other Mallikarjuna temple first, and by the time we found the Mallikarjuna temple we were actually looking for, we were literally drained and exhausted to the core. So we made a quick stop for some ice cream and beverages before hitting the road again. Once in Palolem, we did have a really good time though. It was slightly crowded, but not quite as much to bother you. Even though there were people around, you could still find a quiet spot to sit and watch the sun setting on the horizon. Even though I might not like going into the water all the time, I do, however, like to see people having such a great time at the beach. In a way, it's kind of heartwarming to see adults acting like kids and playing with the waves. There's this visible childlike delight on their faces, and it does feel good to see people leave behind all their worries and for a brief moment be carefree without inhibition like they were when they were younger. The next day, Snehasmita and I went to Varca beach again, this time a little early, having learnt our lesson from our previous experience. At the beach though, we saw these twins, kids who looked alike but were so damn different in nature. While one darted off into the water and was playing amidst the waves, the other preferred being at a distance from the water and just sat there building sand castles on the shore. Later, we joined Ratnadeep and Dhanyaswaroopa at a restaurant they were at for lunch. My fellow Bengalis were so ecstatic at the sight of the fish that was served that they could not stop taking pictures of it. Later that day, I did find the odd occasion when I was allowed to just sit at the beach and watch the sunset before I was again dragged into the water. Next to me was this elderly couple who were probably having a nice evening at the beach. I'm no romantic, but it was sweet to see people their age having a good time at Goa too. When you think of Goa, you don't really think of elderly couples, but of all the countless couples that I came across during our stay, this was the one that stood out. So South Goa did turn out to be a pleasant surprise, at least for me. And even though I never really liked the idea of going to Goa, I must admit that I have changed my mind. I'd indeed like to go to Goa again. More specifically, South Goa. But I'd planned my stay somewhat differently. I think South Goa is the kind of place I'd like to go for a staycation. I'd like to rent a small apartment and stay there for a month or two. And I'd most possibly stay in Varca only. Maybe I would write something during my stay. I'd probably also rent a simple commuter bike and pretend it's a cafe racer, and then I'd take it to local cafes and eateries, especially the ones where the locals go to eat. Every other evening, I'd just take my bike out to the beach and sit there, listening to some music, possibly beat a cat recording code. Anyway, we would leave next afternoon, and so we didn't really do much all day. We did go to Varca beach again for a bit and came back just in time to be able to catch our bus from Madgaon.